A weak boy finds an overpowered mechanical arm that destroys everything on its own. As he rides through the futuristic city of Kitakagami, the protagonist's attention is captured by something unusual happening on top of a building. Moments earlier, inside the building, armed guards realize that a valuable item was being stolen by a young woman using robotic limbs. She effortlessly scales the structure and reaches the balcony, only to be met by dozens of men pointing their guns at her. The tattoo on her leg starts glowing, enhancing her mechanical limbs. One of the guards yells that she's a mecha user. Her speed and power are extraordinary, but the security team uses anti-mecha weapons to disable her. Just then, a man with his own mechanical limbs arrives to retrieve the stolen item. The girl's robotic arm, seemingly alive, is stunned to see another of its kind working against it, but the man claims mecha are just tools for humans. He pulls the item back with his bladed chains, but the girl orders her limbs, Sinus, and Dex to attack. She breaks free and charges at him, igniting a fierce battle. As they fight, security opens fire again, but the woman dodges the bullets and continues. After a brutal clash, she grabs the item, but a crack in its glass causes it to explode, emitting a beam of light that the boy saw from afar. After the explosion, a cube falls from the shattered container and tumbles off the building. The following morning, Hikaru Amatsuga wakes to a voice in his head pleading for help just as his alarm clock finishes ringing. After a while, he heads out with his bag. Throughout the city, Higame Corporation's ads and drones are everywhere. On a crowded subway, Hikaru is still puzzled by the events of the previous day. While researching, he stumbled upon an article on Naohito Kagami's work. In the comments, someone says it's pointless for ordinary people to try. Just then, a man falls asleep on Hikaru's shoulder, interrupting him. Nearby, a pregnant woman catches his eye, while two older women seem to gossip about his manners, but Hikaru remains stuck under the sleepy passenger. Turning back to his phone, he spots an ad for Kitakagami Prep School, which makes him sweat nervously. Frozen in place, he watches as the sleeping man offers his seat to the pregnant woman. Hikaru suddenly remembers he forgot something and needs to get off, but three classmates approach him for a chat. During their talk, someone mentions receiving a sports ball, and Tagawa remarks that in baseball, Yakumo Kagami is Kitakagami's biggest star, but now the spotlight is on the monster Kosu Tagawa. The prep school ad reads, "Take a step forward, seize your future," but Tagawa believes people like them struggle because they can't take that step. He asks for Hikaru's thoughts, but Hikaru, lost in his phone, doesn't hear him. Meanwhile, the girl with the mecha learns from her mechanical arm that the cube must be nearby. After glancing away from his phone, Hikaru shares his version of what happened the previous day. He recalls hearing a voice, looking out the window, and seeing a strange glow around the Kagami building. Climbing to a higher spot for a clearer view, he witnessed the building explode and recorded it. Along with the blast, a glowing object fell from the building, though none of this was captured on video. At that moment, a girl named Shirayama joins them, and Tagawa tells her Hikaru's been experiencing strange hallucinations involving voices and explosions. Another friend asks what the voice sounded like, and Hikaru, embarrassed, admits it was someone asking for help. As soon as he says this, he feels a strong sense that the voice came from a specific direction and abruptly runs off without explaining. Hikaru reaches a restricted area where a police officer warns him to stay back. After the officer leaves, Hikaru hears the voice even more clearly and crosses the barrier, approaching a grated door that leads to a dark room. Gathering his courage, he enters and discovers the cube that had fallen from the building. As he tries to figure out if the voice came from it, the cube suddenly asks for help. Hikaru realizes it wasn't his imagination. The object climbs onto his hoodie and emits the same brilliant light seen from miles away, catching the attention of a girl with mechanical limbs. A robotic arm emerges from the cube, slowly assessing the safety of its surroundings. Hikaru spins around trying to understand what's going on, when he notices something clinging to his back. Naturally, he's terrified as the mechanical arm thanks him for saving it but struggles to remember its own name. Panicking, Hikaru tries to pull it off, but as the arm begins to cry, he apologizes, still confused. Suddenly, a drone from the Kagami group locates Hikaru, labeling him as a potential target and chasing him with spinning blades. Hikaru runs, the metallic arm grabbing his pants to hold on, which causes them to fall and makes him trip. In desperation, Hikaru offers the arm to the drone, thinking it's the target. But when attacked, the arm defends him, disabling the drone. However, more drones appear with the same mission, and the robotic arm warns Hikaru that they must work together to escape. Meanwhile, in a massive office, an important figure is informed that the trigger arm has been found and has attached itself to a civilian. Naohito Kagami, the company's president, decides to let his subordinates handle the situation. They order a 2-mile perimeter around the area, determined to recover the arm no matter what happens to the kid. Meanwhile, Hikaru and the arm hide from the drones, successfully evading them. Relieved, Hikaru asks what the robotic arm is, but it can't answer, having forgotten its own identity. The robot understands one thing: the boy in front of it is kind. Hikaru says he hasn't done anything special, but the arm insists it was saved, explaining that without arbitrium it wouldn't be able to move so well. Hikaru asks what arbitrium is, but the robot ignores him and instead asks for his name. Hikaru doesn't answer and simply wishes the arm good luck before walking away. As the arm starts losing power, Hikaru grows concerned and runs back to check on it. The arm regains its strength, but Hikaru, now frustrated, walks away again. Each time he leaves, the arm weakens, so Hikaru gives in and stays by its side. Drones eventually find them, and the arm, now called Alma, drags Hikaru away as a Kagami employee watches from above, assuming the drones will handle the situation. Meanwhile, Aki Murasame, guided by her mechanical arms, follows the path of a mysterious beam. When she reaches Hikaru, she takes over and together, they defeat the drones. Aki then warns Alma not to move unless it wants to die. One of Aki's arms demands she first vow to protect them, but the other arm argues it no longer matters. Then the enigmatic Kagami employee reappears, eager to settle the score for what Aki did to him the night before. Aki responds that she has no business with the man, while Hikaru and Alma try to escape via the narrow path. The girl moves to pursue them, but the enemy reacts, stopping her from leaving. Amidst the confusion, Hikaru navigates the fork and dodges more drones. Aki is livid at her rival's interference, while the protagonist begins to lose his composure in this wild, unexpected turn in his life. Although he keeps running, exhaustion starts to weigh on him. Seeing this, Alma offers to stay behind, saying Kagami is after him, not the boy, and the last thing she wants is for this kind-hearted kid to get hurt for no reason. At that moment, Aki catches up with them after defeating the Kagami employee, now free to complete her mission. Alma pledges to obey Aki if she lets the boy go, but Hikaru recalls a report stating that ordinary people never even get a chance, so he decides not to abandon the mechanical arm in this chaos. Seeing that Hikaru intends to resist, Aki realizes she has no choice but to use force, preparing her mecha Yu for battle. As this unfolds, Alma asks for Hikaru's trust and urges him to take a step forward, saying that only by working together can they have a chance. Hearing this, Hikaru recalls Kagami's prep school advertisements always trying to convince people life is easy, which fills him with a surge of anger, driving him to charge at the enemy. In that moment, Alma activates its system, growing in size and power. With a strong punch, it drives a key into the ground. This gives Hikaru and his robotic companion the opportunity to escape, and they take it without hesitation. Around the area, other Kagami employees are closing in, searching for the runaways, while the boy and his metal arm choose the least likely routes to avoid being caught. During the escape, Hikaru mentions hearing Alma's name from the woman and introduces himself to the mechanical entity. Meanwhile, a young boy collapses from exhaustion after realizing that someone has stolen Alma from him. Gasping for air with the help of an inhaler, he angrily declares that the trigger arm is his. At the same time, the leader of a rival group, which Aki is part of, regrets their failure but stresses that Alma must be retrieved before it ends up in enemy hands. With this goal in mind, Aki is sent back on the same mission. Without hesitation, the investigators swiftly identify the boy who attempted to flee with the trigger arm, a random middle schooler who got entangled in the whole situation. According to investigator Tus, eliminating him would be a cruel command. However, her partner Wana responds that this highlights the significance of the trigger arm and asks if she has any emotional attachment to the boy. Tus retaliates by pinching his leg sharply, remarking that it's because of people like him that they aren't taken seriously. Wana concedes that Tus is diligent, and she assures him she wouldn't hesitate even if it involved a child. When Hikaru went to the school restroom, he never expected that woman to pursue him relentlessly. Alma appeared, noting with surprise that Aki wasn't showing any signs of aggression. Hikaru remarked that they likely wouldn't be attacked even in the classroom, so Alma suggested they talk to Aki, saying there was so much confusion earlier they didn't have a chance to say anything. However, Hikaru clearly remembered Aki vowing to unalive him, so he wasn't convinced by the idea. In fact, he thought it might be wiser to contact the police or something. Deep in thought, Hikaru was startled when he noticed Alma had unraveled the entire toilet paper roll, nearly covering them both in the restroom. Alma, fascinated by the contraption, claimed he just couldn't resist. Out of the blue, Aki appeared, advising that the young man shouldn't speak to the police because the officers were mere pawns of the Kagami group, and if they captured Hikaru, they'd hand him straight over to the boss. Amidst the chaos, Aki offered to be his bodyguard. Panicking, Hikaru protested that it was the men's bathroom and darted out as quickly as possible. Still wrapped in toilet paper, Shirayama watched the chaos unfold, but what terrified her most was seeing Aki chasing after Hikaru with unrelenting determination. Later, Hikaru met his friends, who were curious about his situation with Aki. He tried to explain that she was literally chasing him, but they didn't believe him, thinking he was hiding something. Just then, Aki appeared again, and one kid pointed out where Hikaru was. By that time, Hikaru had already fooled and found a hiding spot. Suddenly, Shirayama approached Aki and introduced herself. Noticing how anxious Aki seemed, she offered her a box of cookies. While Shirayama explained the flavors, Alma and Hikaru were terrified, thinking Aki might hurt Shirayama. But to their surprise, Aki eagerly accepted the cookies. Despite Aki's social awkwardness, the two seemed to click, thanks to Shirayama's outgoing nature. This left Hikaru puzzled. While Alma suggested he talk to Aki, Hikaru had a different idea: sleep. Alma grumbled, but Hikaru explained he couldn't talk about the mechanical arm at school. Switching topics, Alma noticed Hikaru pulling headphones from his pocket. He explained they were noise-canceling, which fascinated Alma. As the strange scene unfolded, Shirayama subtly gave Aki advice about Hikaru. When Hikaru returned to school, Alma kept urging him to talk to Aki, but he wasn't emotionally ready. Shirayama caught up with him, handing over a note from Aki, asking to meet in the old school building's art room after class. Shirayama scolded Hikaru, saying Aki had been searching for him all day but couldn't find him, leaving Hikaru stunned. Thinking he was just shy, Shirayama dragged him to the meeting spot, telling him to accept Aki's feelings. Once inside, Hikaru realized Aki had used Shirayama to get her way. But Aki clarified that Shirayama had orchestrated everything. Hearing Aki use Shirayama's first name despite having just met her drove Hikaru crazy. Still, he wanted to know Aki's purpose. Aki revealed she was part of ARMS and needed to retrieve the trigger arm. Since Hikaru was bonded with it, they had to bring him too. Alma, feeling weak without Hikaru, agreed and Hikaru accepted, wanting answers about himself. Aki tried to make sense of it all, and when Hikaru tried to speak, one of Aki's arms told him to be quiet, noting Aki struggled with complex thoughts. Finally, she insisted they examine the robotic arm immediately, leaving Hikaru with no choice. He asked if Alma could grow large again, like before, to handle any threats. The mecha complied, unleashing its power. Aki was impressed, but the arm quickly weakened. Seizing the moment, Hikaru grabbed it and ran, while Alma complained he shouldn't be running in the hallway. Aki pursued them furiously. Shirayama appeared, reminding Hikaru to talk to Aki, which sent him into a panic as he sought a way out. Meanwhile, Tus was tracking his target, but a student blocked his entry. Trapped, Hikaru realized his only option was to head upstairs. Aki's arms pointed in conflicting directions, yet she chose to go down. Suddenly, a hole opened in the ceiling above Hikaru, and he found himself under Aki's control. She confessed confusion over why he hadn't defeated her when she was vulnerable and demanded to know his intentions with Alma. Though one of her arms tried to explain Hikaru meant no harm, she ordered them to prove their bond as her arm regained power, but soon weakened again. Aki tells Hikaru that he's only injuring the trigger arm, forcing her to deal with the boy. Shirayama bursts in, misinterpreting the scene, and leaves, thinking he's interrupting something romantic. Warner uses the open door to sneak into the school and target Hikaru. Hikaru spots Warner wearing a Kagami Group uniform, and Warner reveals his mecha Yude, aiming to take down Alma's host with a sonic shot. The spy opens the door wider, giving a sniper a clear shot at Hikaru, who barely escapes. Warner continues the chase until Hikaru is stunned again. At the end of the hall, the sniper fires, but Aki blocks it with her metal arm. She reports finding two chained mecha Yudes that don't seem to be of the worm type. Aki assumes Warner is from Kagami's expansion department. Alma asks what a chained mecha Yude is, and one of Aki's arms explains that it's a device that enslaves robots. Aki tells Hikaru to hide with Alma, but Warner attacks with luminous blades. Hikaru, exhausted from running, wants to give up, but Alma refuses to leave Aki and the mecha Yude behind. Reluctantly, Hikaru follows Alma's orders. At the bottom of the stairs, Alma is on the verge of collapse from being so far from the boy. Hikaru approaches, telling the robot to stop acting tough, knowing his condition. He places the trigger arm on his shoulder, thinking of ways to counter the sonic shot. Meanwhile, Tuz asks her partner for an update but receives no reply, so she heads into the facility. Inside, the henchmen have chained Aki's mecha Yude. They offer them to her, but she refuses, stating she's not like them. She's carried outside, where Tuz asks about the trigger arm. Her partner reveals it's hidden in the old school, but Tuz shifts focus to a key. Frustrated, she can't unalive the arms member due to her orders. As Hikaru arrives carrying the target, the villain is confident, but Hikaru warns it won't be as easy as before. Warner fires the sonic shot again, but this time the boy, wearing noise-canceling headphones, dodges it. He throws his metal arm to free Aki's mecha Yudes. The problem is, Hikaru has to stay close to the arm to prevent malfunction. He leaps toward Alma but gets hit by Tuz's rifle, losing one side of his headphones. Still, the plan works and Aki is freed. Without a second thought, she uses Tuz as a barrier against the sonic blast and swiftly charges at Warner, her defense holding firm. With this protection, she's able to close the gap between her and a Kagami member, delivering a crushing blow. The intensity of the battle causes the old school building to collapse. Tuz manages to escape, but Warner is left behind. Other ARMS members arrive shortly after, criticizing Aki for the chaos she caused and inquiring about Alma. Meanwhile, security staff from a facility decide to reach out to White Raven, as someone has stolen the highly dangerous artificial mecha Yude Ouroboros. Meanwhile, Hikaru is taken to the ARMS headquarters, an organization that opposes the Akagami Group and was founded to free the mecha Yudes from their constraints. The leader of the group introduces himself as Algis and reveals that his mecha youth is called Fist. Fist refers to Alma as little brother and assures him that his memories will soon return. However, despite needing Alma's assistance, they make it clear that Hikaru is not necessary. Meanwhile, a young ARMS member walks through the streets talking to someone via a device. The person mentions that a middle school boy managed to bring Alma back. The ARMS member admits he's never heard of a Darais made with a sweatshirt, just as the Ouroboros kid appears. Switching to Hikaru, he's being used as a weight for Alma's push-ups, while telling Aki that it hurt when they said he was useless to the resistance. At that moment, a scientist explained that he'd analyzed Hikaru's abilities while he was asleep. The scientist revealed that Hikaru possesses arbitrium, a power from the human mind that powers the mecha Yud. Unfortunately, Hikaru has much less arbitrium than needed to handle this kind of robot, meaning he wasn't made for this. Quen, the scientist, bluntly said Hikaru had almost a negative level of arbitrium, making him even weaker than a regular person. As a result, Quen emphasized that Hikaru is just Alma's temporary host with no real power. But Alma defended Hikaru, saying he could do anything if he tried and that he's a kind person who helps others. Without him, Alma wouldn't even be here. Despite Alma's defense, Quen argued that the data doesn't lie. Hikaru has no future in this. Aki disagreed, saying Hikaru had the power to draw strength from Alma, which is why she offered to train him. Hikaru then questioned if training was even worth it since he wasn't contributing much beyond being Alma's weight. Aki explained that arbitrium is tied to one's spirit and encouraged the boy to stay motivated, reminding him that he wanted to help the robot arm. During this, Aki gets a call from ARMS and asks her student to join her. They learn that thieves are stealing mecha Yud from their carriers, with the third theft happening just recently. Algis suggests it could be the work of a new Kagami agent group, so they must act fast to recover the stolen arms before it's too late. Alma is confused by the urgency, so one of Aki's arms explains that if a mecha Yud is forcibly removed, it will die in a few days because arbitrium leaks from the Darais point. Though not fully understood, arbitrium is essential for human biology, and those bonded with mecha Yud gain extraordinary abilities. While this might not apply to Hikaru, Alma's safety is paramount. Aki then asks about the boy attacked in the incident, but Algis cuts her off, reminding her to focus on protecting Alma without letting emotions interfere. Hikaru is confused by the mention of emotions, but Aki dismisses it, calling her student over to examine something. Meanwhile, at the Kagami building, a subordinate reports to the president that Jun's whereabouts remain unknown. One of Naohito Kagami's trusted men notes that Jun has disgraced the family by stealing an incomplete mecha Yud. Tagao, who wasn't part of the conversation, suspects that someone from Division 3 promotion helped the group escape. He believes that if needed, they can simply call back the White Ravens using a key. Meanwhile, Aki is investigating the case independently without notifying the authorities. Nearby, Amada is searching for CEO Kagami's younger brother Jun with his mecha Yud Joe. The two set off in the name of White Raven's honor. Suddenly, Aki appears with Hikaru and asks Amada if he knows anything about a worm-type mecha Yud carrier. Without hesitation, the White Raven's henchmen attack Aki, but she quickly summons Sinus and Dex to fend them off. Imada, seeing the damage to his men, changes his approach, assuming the intruder is with arms. Hikaru notices a green-haired boy struggling with an inhaler and rushes to help, unaware it's Jun. Distracted, Jun escapes. Imada then transforms Joe into a motorcycle and chases after him. Further ahead, Hikaru is stopped by more White Raven's henchmen. But just as one is about to strike, Alma intervenes to protect him, revealing his trigger arm. Imada soon catches up on his bike, but as everyone watches, Jun escapes again. Despite the chase, Alma starts running, knowing the bike is faster and closing in. Aki intervenes to restore order, ending the White Raven's show with a powerful kick that knocks Joe off balance. Joe flips over, throwing his owner off. Meanwhile, under threat from Kagami, Aki tries to get answers, but he insists he knows nothing about any worm. Losing patience, Aki hurls a large container near him to scare him. Sinus and Dex realize the pair truly don't know anything, as they couldn't respond even under pressure. Aki then questions Hikaru's sudden escape attempt. Despite his explanation, Sinus and Dex don't buy it, thinking he wanted to flee. Furious, Aki grabs Hikaru, reminding him that his actions nearly cost Alma her life. Though she acknowledged Hikaru's potential before, she now calls him useless, warning that if he's not going to help, he should at least stay out of the way. Meanwhile, Jun finally takes a photo of Alma after searching for him. Annoyed, Hikaru throws Oi's criticism back at her, claiming she's the one who brought him into this dangerous situation, and now she's spewing nonsense. Fed up, Hikaru decides to run away for good. As he celebrates avoiding further conflict, Aki steps in to settle the matter. The boy summons a powerful force, revealing he's a worm type, which leaves his opponent shocked. Meanwhile, Hikaru is crying and Alma keeps urging him to return. Suddenly, Hikaru's phone rings. It's Aki's number, but the green-haired child who took her hostage is calling, demanding Hikaru's mecha Yud in exchange for the ARMS member. The child has ripped the mecha Yud from the girl, and she'll die soon if they don't act fast. A meeting point is set. Algis contacts Hikaru, telling him to wait for the bodyguard, but Hikaru feels powerless and is left discouraged. Alma tries to encourage him by reminding him of his past importance, but Hikaru believes the metal arm is the only source of his courage, not his own will. Determined, he heads toward Jun, disobeying Algis. He realizes the child he's facing is the one he tried to help earlier. Alma assures him they'll get Sinus and Dex back, but the child only cares about Alma, as the trigger arm gives unmatched strength. Hikaru refuses to back down, and Jun charges at him with full force. Alma guides Hikaru's movements, but their enemy's power is too overwhelming for them to get close to Sinus and Dex. The child provokes the protagonist by saying weak people can't change anything, but if anyone knows that feeling, it's Hikaru. He's all too familiar with feeling useless, yet he doesn't give up. This time, he charges at his opponent and lands a punch driven by rage. The hit enrages Jun, who retaliates fiercely. With the battlefield under his control, Jun unleashes electrical blasts from his mecha Yud, hitting Hikaru and Alma, almost ending the fight. Jun then traps Hikaru with his tentacles and delivers another powerful shock, needing his inhaler afterward. Believing the fight is over, he's caught off guard when Alma, who is pretending to be knocked out, strikes back. However, the blow isn't enough, and Alma starts to weaken from being too far from his host. In that moment, Hikaru recalls his bond with Alma and pushes himself to close the gap. With great effort, he touches the trigger arm, releasing a massive energy surge as they fuse, becoming incredibly powerful. Jun attacks with confidence, but every strike is deflected. After a fierce battle, Jun is finally overwhelmed by a devastating punch and is defeated. Before they can celebrate, Tagao, the mysterious boy from the Kagami headquarters meeting, shows up. He announces he's only there to retrieve his master and isn't interested in fighting, but he decides to take Sinus and Dex for himself. Hikaru insists on getting his friends back, and since Todo isn't getting paid for this, he easily returns the mecha Yud and leaves. The next day, Aki wakes up next to her metal arms and goes to Hikaru, who's fixing the hood where Alma stays. Embarrassed, she admits she got involved because a worm-type mecha Yud killed her family, but it wasn't the green-haired guy. She thanks Hikaru for saving her and takes over the stitching, saying he was too slow. Suddenly, Shirayama shows up, sees the scene, and assumes she's interrupting something romantic. But Aki doesn't care and grabs the cookies Shirayama brought. Alma, thinking they were for Hikaru, drags him into a fight over the treats, leaving Hikaru confused by everyone's behavior. As night falls, some ARMS members debate if the situation is overwhelming for Hikaru, but their wait ends when Kagami's transport truck finally arrives. Inside, a henchman celebrates that the shackle is functioning after scientists stripped its self-awareness, though issues with the mecha Yud remain. On top of the vehicle, Hikaru hides, questioning his purpose. Alma encourages him to focus on rescuing their comrades, but Hikaru asks him to stay quiet to avoid being spotted. Oriyama checks in and Hikaru reports a dangerous mecha Yud user aboard. The veteran tells him to stick to the plan, activate the EMP at the interchange. Meanwhile, the enemy powers up his metal arm, threatening Kagami's scientists to reveal anything useful from the mecha Yud cubes despite orders. Alma, disregarding the plan, attacks the driver, flipping the truck. Hikaru flees as Alma grabs a cube. However, their escape is cut off when the truck is launched toward them, followed by an explosive. The hulking Kagami henchman demands his mecha Yud back. Shaken, Hikaru is dragged along by Alma, who desperately tries to keep them alive as Tani and Carix rush to help. Meanwhile, the massive enemy overpowers them and fires another explosive, boasting that the battle is over. However, the shot destroys a bridge, sending his mecha Yud flying as Hikaru and Alma vanish. Tani manages to save them just in time, but the enemy quickly finds their hiding spot and resumes the chase. Aki intervenes to prevent disaster, allowing Tani to grab Hikaru and flee. The brute, surprised to see the girl has 2 mecha Yuds, reveals he has 3. He attacks recklessly but collapses from exhaustion, leading Sinus and Dex to mock him for trying to control multiple robots without training. As he turns to call the retrieval team, something unknown wraps around his neck, and when he looks back, he's transformed into a giant, launching devastating attacks. Aki dodges the assault, though the brute seems drained, controlled by some unknown force. Hikaru arrives with Alma, who delivers a powerful punch, knocking the enemy back. Aki complains that Hikaru should have fled, but the enemy quickly recovers and fires again. Alma absorbs the impact, shielding the group as the fight continues. Hikaru matches him blow for blow, his moves far more precise and efficient than his enraged opponent. Alma shouts that mecha Yuds aren't toys as she delivers a final strike, taking the brute down for good. After the victory, Tani arrives with saved mecha Yud cubes, crediting Hikaru for the success. Meanwhile, Aki wonders how the enemy kept fighting despite losing energy. With the mission over, she returns to base, heads to the shower, and is flooded by memories of her sister, who called herself the princess and Aki the hero. This promise to protect her sister haunts her. After the shower, Aki picks up a family photo, gazing at it before running into Quen, who awkwardly reacts to seeing her in home clothes. Sinis and Dex shield her from his gaze as he reports that the Kagami member they capture hasn't revealed any information and none of his mecha youths are of the worm type. Still, Aki insists it was a worm type based on how the man regained strength. The next morning at 8 a.m., Alma wakes Hikaru, rushing him to avoid being late. Aki shows up at his window to speed things up, and moments later, Aki tosses a groggy Hikaru into his seat like a sack of trash. All their classmates assume it's a typical case of romance, but that's far from true. The girls, along with Shirayama, are gossiping about a rich new transfer student, but Aki doesn't seem too interested. Suddenly, a boy calls Hikaru to the rooftop via the school's intercom. When he gets there, it's Jun Kagami, the new student who claims he transferred just to meet Hikaru and retrieve Alma. Aki and Hikaru immediately confront Jun, but just as he's about to retaliate, Tobe warns him through his earpiece not to break his promise on the first day. Jun's agreement to stay at the school included a rule he can't use his mecha yud. He then informs them that his mecha yud, Ouroboros, needs time to adapt to his body. In the meantime, he plans to figure out why Hikaru can use the trigger arm, and once he knows, he'll take it. Hikaru charges at him again, but Alma stops him, sensing that Jun knows something about his past. As the arms group argues, Jun admits he can't attack at school, but warns Hikaru to stay alert outside. After the rooftop confrontation, Aki follows Hikaru relentlessly, determined to prevent Alma from being captured, no matter how hard Hikaru tries to escape her watchful eye. Eventually, he manages to lose her, if only briefly. At that moment, Kagami approaches again, trying to figure out how his opponent can use the trigger arm. In a conversation with Todo about the difference between him and Hikaru, Todo guesses it might be related to their diets. Hearing this, Jun decides to treat his #1 rival to lunch. Alma notices Jun holding a super ultra black card, the kind only celebrities have, while Hikaru takes the chance to ask something about Alma. Just then, Aki arrives in time to take the trigger arm and its host away. Before leaving, she tells Kagami that if he wants to treat someone to lunch, he should take her to an all-you-can-eat, high-end yakiniku buffet. After that, Hikaru heads to the bathroom, with Eki always trailing behind, thinking they'll never uncover anything about Alma's past that way. Suddenly, Hikaru gets an idea, as today is the school's general sports tournament. On the court, Hikaru participates while looking for Jun and Aki, only to be hit in the head by a stray ball. Watching the scene, Jun wonders how someone wielding the trigger arm could be so bad at sports. As if to make it worse, Aki throws a ball from a neighboring court, hitting Hikaru's head again and rushing to his aid. Meanwhile, Shirayama arrives and notices the competition over Hikaru, so she organizes a duel between Aki and Jun to settle it, with herself as referee. Facing Jun, Aki imposes a condition. If she wins, Jun must leave Hikaru alone. But before the fight begins, the protagonist wakes up and offers to pay for the yakiniku buffet. Wanting her favorite meal, Aki agrees to call off the duel and walks away. Hikaru finally gets a chance to speak with Jun. Alma admits he knows nothing about his past, and Jun reveals that Alma's family holds the key, first showing him a photo that proves Alma was once part of the Kagami family, linked to Yakumo Kagami, the founder of the company that shaped Kitakagami. Alma is horrified at the idea of having harmed other mecha youths alongside them, but Jun has no answers and tells them to investigate further. Meanwhile, Eki gets a call from Quen, who has information on a worm-type user. After speaking with Jun, Hikaru and Alma go to the library to research the city's history. They find a portrait of Yakumo Kagami, which enrages Alma due to the Kagami family's atrocities against mecha youths. He feels conflicted, sensing his past is close but still beyond his memory. Later, Aki confronts the worm user, who holds Tani captive. The user rips Carex from Tani and shatters the mecha youth. In a rage, Sinis and Dex attack, but the worm user dodges and attaches a device to Tani, forcing him to fight his allies. Eki is forced to defeat Tani in the chaos. Hikaru, hearing the news, rushes to help, arriving with Oyama, who takes the injured to arms. After their scientists and physicians do everything possible to stabilize the human, Algis reassures them that Tani will recover, but he can't make the same promise for Carex. Hikaru proposes they might fix the robot with replacement parts, but Algis and Fist explain that mecha youths are sentient beings, just like humans, and they originate from another dimension, having lost their homeland and companions, Ordella. The cube who gave them life was discovered on this planet with human assistance. However, during an attempt to awaken her, an accident occurred, causing Ordella to lose control. To seal her power, Alma expended all his energy and fell into a deep slumber. In other words, Alma's lost memories are the key to breaking this seal and reactivating Ordella. Nevertheless, this power could be misused, making Alma's top priority to prevent such a catastrophe. Amid all of this, Carex's life signs disappear completely. When Aki met up with Quen, he informed her that the worm-type user she was after was still on the loose. He'd only recently discovered this after noticing incident reports of someone stealing people's mechas. Aside from June, this had apparently been happening for months, so Aki grabbed him angrily by the collar, demanding why he hadn't told her sooner. In his defense, he hadn't known until he hacked into the ARM's database to help her. Realizing that this information had been there for months, Aki suspected Algis must have known and kept it from her. Quentin suggested Algis was likely investigating the incidents on his own as he'd been tracking this for 8 years. Just then, an alarm sounded. The worm-type user was active again. Wasting no time, Aki rushed to confront her old enemy and soon tracked her down in an empty parking garage. She prepared for revenge, fueled by the memory of her family's death. But as she got close enough to attack, she froze. The worm-tech user was her younger sister, Fubuki. Back when they were little, Aki and Fubuki would play games together, though Aki never quite understood them. Then their mother would call Fubuki for experiments, which Aki usually did, except when she was injured and Fubuki had to take her place. Aki last saw Fubuki leave the room with a smile, until moments later the facility erupted in flames and Fubuki and her parents vanished without a trace. Now Aki, Sinus, and Dex are stunned to see Fubuki alive. They're glad to see Aki. Fubuki's severe coughing shows she's in poor shape. Suddenly, her warm mecha appears, prompting Sinus and Dex to slam it against the wall. Many questions remain unanswered, but they must flee quickly as ARM's agents are approaching. When the agents reach the garage, they find only a cracked wall and one of Aki's broken hair clips, confirming Aki's suspicions. Outside, Aki holds the mecha captive, demanding answers and accuses it of killing her parents. The mecha tries to explain, claiming it was an accident, but Sinus and Dex cut it off, suspecting deceit. Sinus recalls the mecha's attack on everyone that day, though he doesn't understand why. Fubuki, distraught, urges Aki to stop, taking the blame for the tragedy and apologizing repeatedly. Amaryllis tries to comfort her. Sinus and Dex press Amaryllis to tell the full story of what truly happened that day. On the day of the incident, everything was proceeding as planned, and Fubuki was happily sharing with her mother about a game she played with Aki. The experiment was designed to explore the potential for arbitrium amplification, so Amaryllis and her partner enter to assist. However, the moment Amaryllis made eye contact with Fubuki, an unexpected phenomenon occurred, causing their arbitrium to resonate. Amaryllis attempted to break the resonance by desynchronizing from Fubuki, but this only worsened the situation. Fubuki has long wanted to discuss this with Aki, but guilt has held her back. She feels responsible for their parents' deaths. Though Amaryllis insists it wasn't her fault, Aki still blames Fubuki, and despite Fubuki's pleas, Aki is determined to confront Amaryllis. However, Fubuki collapses under the stress, something Amaryllis had feared. Aki suggests taking her to a hospital, but Amaryllis explains that after the incident, Fubuki developed a condition that prevents her from producing her own arbitrium. No doctor or scientist has been able to help. They have been managing her symptoms, but according to Amaryllis, Fubuki's time is running out. There's only one way to save her, but it will be challenging. The next morning, Hikaru's alarm goes off and Alma wakes him, as this is usually when Aki flies through his window. However, today the window remains intact, and instead, Aki rings the front doorbell. Hikaru and Alma sense something strange, noticing that Aki never uses the front door, but since Aki seems unwilling to discuss it, Hikaru decides not to press her. Just then, Shirayama rushes over with a suggestion. With a big test coming up, they should all study together, including Jun, who has been watching Hikaru from afar all morning. She asks Jun to join, but he scoffs, saying he didn't come to this school to study. Ignoring him, Shirayama calls over to Hikaru, asking if they can use his house for the study session. Though Hikaru likes the idea of spending time with Shirayama, he's wary of Aki and Jun possibly clashing at his place. He tries to dissuade Shirayama, but she insists and even asks Aki to back her up. Aki politely declines, saying she already goes to Hikaru's house every morning, so studying there isn't special. She then walks off, with Hikaru following, sensing something is wrong, though Aki refuses to explain. Meanwhile, back at ARMS, a scientist, growing frustrated with the lack of information, approaches Quen's workstation to ask if he knows anything about Aki, who hasn't visited HQ recently. After initially denying involvement, Quen reluctantly admits, under pressure, that he may have had a role in Aki's current predicament. Meanwhile, Aki is by her ill sister's side as Amaryllis explains their dire situation. Since Fubuki can't produce her own arbitrium, Amaryllis has been siphoning it from other mecha users to keep Fubuki alive. However, Fubuki's illness is advancing too rapidly for Amaryllis to keep up, and time is running out. Amaryllis urges Aki to do whatever it takes to save her sister, and Aki realizes the only way to guarantee Fubuki's survival is to take Hikaru's life. Meanwhile, across the city, mecha users infected by Amaryllis, from both the ARMS and Kagami groups, begin to lose control and lash out, though Algis suspects the cause. All ARMS agents and Kagami group members are dispatched to contain the chaos. Later that evening, Shirayama, Jun, and Hikaru plan to study at Hikaru's house, but Hikaru receives an urgent message from Algis and heads to ARMS HQ. There, Algis apologizes for the sudden summons, explaining that dozens of mecha users have gone berserk, and he suspects Aki's involvement due to her interaction with a worm-type mecha user. If true, it would mean Aki has betrayed both humanity and the mecha Yud. For now, he aims to capture her for questioning, but she's a powerful mecha user, so they may need to use force to stop her. Alma and Hikaru can't believe Aki is under suspicion since she's their comrade, yet they understand that harems can't operate on sentiment alone. Aki only joined them because her goals align with theirs. If those goals have shifted, there's nothing preventing her from betraying them. Hikaru, however, refuses to believe Aki would do this and rushes to find her before Arms does, determined to understand what's happening. Quen reminds Hikaru he has no idea where to search, but Quen has a plan to track Aki down using Wanner, a man who recently tried to kill Hikaru. Though Wanner is clearly reluctant, his mecha, Kejimaru, unexpectedly apologizes to Hikaru for the previous encounter. Arms removed Kejimaru's restraints after capturing him, freeing his will, while Quen was hesitant to pair Kejimaru with Wanner again. No one else was available, and Kejimaru insisted on it. He's determined to teach Wanner the true meaning of justice, even if he has to drill it into him. Reluctantly, Wanner kneels, pledging to Hikaru and Alma that he and Kejimaru will be useful on the mission. In town, Kejimaru scans for Aki, but Wanner keeps whining about wanting to go home, frustrating Kejimaru, who tells him to work harder to make up for his past mistakes. Hikaru and Alma begin doubting this search method, but Kejimaru assures them they'll find Aki soon using acoustic sonar to track her arbitrium. Suddenly, Hikaru is attacked from behind and Kejimaru pulls him out of harm's way. Jun, the attacker, declares he'll stay with Hikaru until he uncovers the secret of his power. Alma then asks if Jun will help search for Aki, but Jun refuses, never having liked her. Alma persuades him by offering to share some of Hikaru's secrets during their study session. Word reaches Tadao, who alerts Jun's brother and offers to monitor Jun, but his brother dismisses the concern, prioritizing company interests. Meanwhile, Kejimaru detects Aki's arbitrium in a parking garage. As they approach the source, they find Aki looking ready to follow Amaryllis' advice if it means helping her sister. Startled by his partner's sudden appearance, Hikaru asks where she's been, but she ignores him and moves closer. Alma mentions that she heard Aki was seen with a worm-type mecha user, which leads Hikaru to ask if this involves her quest for revenge. Aki, however, avoids his questions and demands he come with her. When he resists, she lunges at him aggressively. Ironically, Kagami intervenes, stopping the attack since he considers Hikaru his own target. Aki tries to get Kagami out of the way, but his defenses are too strong. He subdues her with his chains, even taunting her about how easy it is. Suddenly, Hikaru grabs Kagami from behind, telling him to stop, forcing Jun to release his chains and free Aki. Hikaru then asks his friend to calm down and offers to help Aki. Alma seizes the moment to question Aki's violent insistence on taking Hikaru. Sinus finally reveals that Aki's sister Fubuki is alive, but Fubuki's mecha-yude Amaryllis explains that a large amount of arbitrium is needed to save her, and Hikaru's trigger arm might be enough. Upon hearing this, Jun bursts into laughter, recalling how Amaryllis caused a major incident in the past, a fact known among the Kagami group. According to him, Mecha-yude only took Fubuki as a hostage to manipulate Aki. Still, Hikaru agrees to go with Aki, since they're friends, and Alma points out that they're great partners, even planning to share a yakiniku meal together afterward. Alma believes that friendship alone is enough to overcome this challenge. However, Higami insists that he, not Aki, will defeat Hikaru to claim the trigger arm. Hikaru, determined, sticks to his choice to help his comrade and extends his hand in support. Meanwhile, Aki reconsiders her approach. She wants to find another way to save her sister without relying on Hikaru's kindness. She views the arbitrium as merely the fastest option, but decides to pursue other paths, making it clear she isn't Hikaru's friend and is driven by revenge. Her blunt honesty about her motives annoys Hikaru. Though the mecha-yude is embarrassed, Aki remains firm, insisting this issue is between her and her sister alone. Meanwhile, a member of the Arms uncovers data on Amaryllis from a Kagami group backup server, showing that mecha-yude is listed as test member 7, linked to an incident with 4 fatalities, including Fubuki. Amaryllis is a type of worm capable of detaching parts of herself to control humans. Quen, analyzing Fubuki's lip movements in a video, learns this fact. Meanwhile, Aki returns to her despondent sister, telling her that Hikaru won't be joining them, so they'll have to find another way out. Hurt, Fubuki accuses Aki of caring more for Hikaru than for her, hugging her sister and crying that Aki is letting her suffer, just like before. Moved, Aki decides to use her own arbitrium to heal Fubuki. Elsewhere, Alma urges Hikaru to follow Aki, but Hikaru, disturbed by what he overheard, starts to question if his desire to help others is only to feel good about himself. Hearing this, Jun Kagami remembers saying something similar to his brother and angrily demands a reaction from Hikaru. Though Hikaru feels conflicted, Alma reassures him that he truly wants to save his friend, not just for self-satisfaction. Alma then asks Wanner and Kejimaru to locate Aki. At the same time, Quen realizes Amaryllis is currently controlling Fubuki, though he's still unsure why Amaryllis, who appears now with Aki's sister, only surfaced without prior warning. The Mecha Worms stopped hiding upon realizing that someone had triggered the weapon, causing Quen to question why the boss never told Aki about her sister. He then explains that Aki couldn't handle knowing the creature that killed her family was controlling her sister. I'll just try to keep this a secret, but it only worsened the situation. Amaryllis urges Aki to understand that her powers alone aren't enough, hinting that Hikaru is still needed. Aki refuses. Fubuki then raises her doll and coldly states that since her sister isn't fulfilling her purpose, she must be punished, throwing her dolls at Aki and disturbing her with this twisted behavior. Fubuki taunts her, saying she was kind enough to let Aki play the hero saving the princess. Panicked, Aki demands to know what happened to her real sister. Amaryllis accuses Aki of selfishness for not playing her assigned role, injuring the mecha Yude. Amaryllis attacks fiercely, but Aki narrowly escapes with help from Sinus and Dex. Fubuki's dolls join the assault, yet Aki fights back, fending them off. In a brief moment of awareness, Fubuki pleads for Aki's help, but Amaryllis only uses her to weaken the trio emotionally, then swiftly subdues them with her chains. Soon, the supposed Fubuki approaches, calling her sister innocent before deciding to take control of her body, wary of the doll she's currently using. Sinus and Dex try to react, but Amaryllis, who's manipulating Fubuki, is too strong. The mecha Yude approaches the sister, reminding her of the past incident and how Aki's parents repeatedly cloned the doll on the day of the accident. Amaryllis coldly reveals she killed them both without regret, leaving Aki tearful. Just then, Hikaru appears with Alma and Kagami, delivering a punch to Amaryllis. Though Aki is irritated by Hikaru's presence, he declares his intent to help. When Fubuki tries to grab him, Kagami blocks it, but Amaryllis quickly binds Hikaru with chains. Jun attempts to restrain the robot, but is mocked for using a flawed version of Ouroboros against her. As Amaryllis approaches the protagonist aiming to steal his arbitrium, Aki steps forward to protect him, but is overpowered. Amaryllis prepares to capture Hikaru, draining his energy and taunting that this resembles an event from 100 years ago, leaving Alma confused by her knowledge of the trigger arm. Controlling Hikaru, Amaryllis advances on Aki, who, feeling helpless and defeated, silently begs for aid as her life slips away. As Hikaru's vision cleared, he began releasing his arbitrium more intensely. Amaryllis entered an ecstatic state, absorbing the power for herself, but Hikaru and Alma responded by intensifying the energy within her, causing her metallic body to crack like glass. The resulting explosion seemed to settle the battle, but Amaryllis reappeared almost unharmed. With Hikaru weakened, Jun Kagami took charge, unleashing his skills by forming massive chains that he used to crush Amaryllis. Eventually, he inflicted serious damage, and at that moment, Fubuki opened her eyes to see her sister protecting her. Amaryllis, enraged, launched her dolls at them, prompting Aki to warn Sinus and Dex to be ready. However, Hikaru and Alma moved first, combining their powers into a form Amaryllis recognized, driving her into a desperate attack. Demonstrating exceptional agility, Hikaru dodged her strikes, closed in, and delivered a powerful punch to her eye, leaving Amaryllis in agony. In her pain, the mecha Yude accused Alma of Yakumo Akagami's death and the twisted fate they all endured. As she finished speaking, the worm was destroyed. Alma reflected on his recent revelations, feeling sorrow, while Fubuki declared her sister a true heroine. The next morning at 8 o'clock, Hikaru looks out his window for Aki as usual, but she's nowhere to be seen. Until he turns to go back to sleep, and she suddenly breaks his window, urging him to get ready to leave. On the way to school, Aki asks for his help studying as she wants to teach Fubuki a few things. She's currently receiving treatment from ARMS, who, along with her sister, will be protecting her. Alma tells Hikaru this is his chance to avoid feeling lonely in the mornings, leaving him embarrassed as he tries to explain he's just grown used to Aki showing up. Aki assures him she'll keep coming by every day, which makes Shirayama swoon secretly. Meanwhile, a director at Kagami learns that the final tests for the gate's activation sequence and Ordella's power supply are complete, meaning he can now open the portal to the Mecha U world and gain control over its inhabitants. He still needs the trigger arm, though, and dismisses Department 3 as useless. Tagal offers the White Crows assistance, but the director refuses to work with them. Back at Hikaru's house, Alma reflects on his hidden past, while Amaryllis, longing to return to her body, encounters a mysterious figure. The mecha Yude, filled with despair, insists she didn't betray her host, but he forcibly tears her from her current body. The next morning, Hikaru's friends secretly watch him as two suspicious figures approach and start confronting him and Aki. These individuals turn out to be ARMS agents sent as extra protection for Hikaru, as Aki alone hasn't been effective. Since the order came directly from ARMS, Aki must accept their help. Nearby, Kazuha, now demoted to security duty after failing to capture Hikaru and losing his mecha, spots Hikaru and seizes the chance to regain his honor by trying to arrest him. Before Kazuha can act, Aki pulls Hikaru's hand and leaps with him onto a passing truck. The driver, unaware of their landing, keeps driving with them on top. Hikaru, frustrated by the chaotic start to his day, listens as Alma apologizes for the disruption. Hikaru reassures him, saying they'll face whatever comes together until Alma regains his memories. Just as Alma starts to share something important, Sinus and Dex interrupt, debating whether honey or jam is better as they prepare breakfast for Hikaru and Aki, despite the truck heading in the opposite direction of their school. Realizing he has no clue where the truck is headed, Hikaru is startled when it suddenly stops, and the driver is knocked out by a blow dart. Members of the Kagami group, including 3rd Division head Namba, Goth Girl Fort, and a newcomer, have arrived to capture him. Namba, clearly reluctant, orders a quick job, prompting Fort to unleash a barrage of spikes from her shackled mecha gun. Aki pulls Hikaru behind the truck for cover as the onslaught damages the vehicle, ensuring the driver's fate is sealed. Aki tells Hikaru to leave and get to school so he won't be marked absent. Hikaru agrees and takes off, only to be blocked by Kazuha. Meanwhile, Oyama and Kayano, held down due to a misunderstanding by Hikaru's friends, are unable to assist. Kazuha declares he must capture Hikaru to redeem himself, but the newcomer interrupts and climbs the truck, taking over the mission. As he strikes, Kazuha spots the familiar mecha taken from him during his demotion and lunges at the newcomer to reclaim it. Amid the chaos, Aki shouts for Hikaru to go, and he resumes his dash to school. This time, Hikaru's path is blocked by the unconscious body of the new recruit, forcing him to turn back and face Kazuha, who has reclaimed his mecha. Meanwhile, Aki sneaks up on Fort, trying to take her down, but Fort dodges just in time. She nearly lines up a perfect shot with her minigun, but accidentally bumps into Kazuha, knocking him over. The two argue briefly before Kazuha returns to attacking Hikaru. Hikaru leaps into the air, teaming up with Alma to counterattack. Kazuha strikes with his whip, but Hikaru and Alma dodge, grab the chain, and hurl Kazuha into Fort, knocking them both down. Embarrassed by the awkward situation, they are quickly taken out by Aki, who sneaks up and incapacitates them. Seeing his team defeated, the division leader decides to call it a day, casually asking Tus to pick up the rookies if convenient. As Aki and Hikaru tie everyone up, Alma begins to tell Hikaru something important, but Aki interrupts, needing help untangling herself. While Hikaru tries to untie her, Kazuha recovers and attempts a surprise attack, but Alma intervenes just in time to block it. However, Hikaru falls and knocks himself unconscious. When he wakes up, everything is under control and the Kagami group members are restrained. Alma feels guilty for Hikaru's injury despite Hikaru's reassurance that it wasn't his fault. Alma insists that Hikaru would be safer without him and doesn't want anyone else hurt on his account. Hikaru realizes Alma may have regained his memories, and this is confirmed. Although Hikaru sees it as positive, Alma admits he's had his memories back since the battle with Amaryllis. When Hikaru questions why he hid it, Alma has no answer and tells Hikaru to stay uninvolved before slipping away. Usually, Aki would pursue him, but she assumes it's unnecessary since Alma cannot move beyond 5 meters from Hikaru without losing power. However, they soon realize he's moving independently and at surprising speed. Back at Arms, Algis informs them that Alma likely regained his memories after encountering Amaryllis. Fist reveals that Alma once had a rare ability to generate his own arbitrium, which had probably returned with his memories. This is the first time anyone has heard about this, so they question why they weren't informed. Fist explains they kept it secret to avoid triggering Alma's traumatic memories, which might have made him inactive again. Now they need to find Alma, so Algis asks everyone to stay alert. When Hikaru offers to help, Algis dismisses him, saying Alma can move independently and Hikaru's involvement is no longer necessary. This shocks both Hikaru and Quen, though Quen suggests it's good because Hikaru can return to a normal life. Hikaru refuses, arguing he can't go back after all he's been through with Alma. Seeing his determination, Algis and Fist agree to explain the truth. In the Mecha Yude world, their planet's arbitrium supply was nearly gone, pushing the Mecha Yudes to the brink of extinction. Alma, Fist, and another companion embarked on a mission to find the legendary Ordella to restore their home. However, it became inactive due to energy depletion. Fortunately, they reached Earth before shutting down entirely. On their arrival, Yakumo Kagami, near his family's mines, noticed a bright light, investigated, and discovered Alma. Soon after, an earthquake struck that would have likely killed Yakumo if he had been alone. Fortunately, he merged with Alma and escaped in time. Before that, Yakumo's older brother, Tsukio, who suffered from an arbitrium-related illness, had joined the Mecha Yude's search for Ordella, hoping for a cure. Yakumo agreed to help, intrigued by the adventure. Together, they pursued Ordella, and after finding it, began their activation research. Days passed, and their efforts were finally ready to show results, though Yakumo grew uneasy, feeling things were progressing too smoothly. Tsukihito reassured him, citing stable test results. However, during Ordella's awakening, things went terribly wrong. Despite completing all necessary tests, Tsukihito failed to consider the consequences of Ordella's full power. Ordella lashed out, knocking out Tsukihito and Fist and injuring Yakumo. Alma, unscathed but anxious, was unsure how to respond. Despite his severe injury, Yakumo reassured Alma, determined to fight. They prepared for battle, though approaching Ordella proved difficult due to its immense strength. They'll need to think outside the box to get within striking distance. Yakumo slams the ground, sending shards of rock flying to distract Ordella, While Rodella focuses on the debris, Yakumo and Alma attack from above, delivering a powerful punch that finally seals Ordella. Though they succeed, Yakumo collapses moments later, fatally wounded, and Alma shuts down emotionally, remaining inactive until meeting Hikaru. Now that Alma remembers his past, he's determined not to let Hikaru suffer the same fate. To protect him, Alma tries to leave, but while crawling into an alley, he encounters Jun. Seeing Alma alone, Jun attempts to fuse with him. But no matter how hard he tries, it doesn't work. Jun accepts that he might not be ready yet, but he notices Alma looks despondent and asks what's wrong. Meanwhile, Hikaru stands on a bridge looking deeply troubled when he receives a call from Jun. To his surprise, Alma's voice comes through. Alma reflects on the day he met Hikaru, admiring his kindness and willingness to help, but he can no longer allow himself to rely on Hikaru's compassion. Alma, now able to move independently, urges Hikaru to return to his former life. Confused, Hikaru tries to argue, but Alma ends the call resolute. Alma decides to stay with Jun, but soon Todo confronts them in the alley, clearly hostile. Meanwhile, Hikaru reflects on his purpose on the bridge until Aki arrives, asking if he's found Alma. Hikaru dismisses the idea, saying Alma doesn't need him anymore. Aki interrupts by punching him and apologizes, explaining she couldn't stand his defeatist attitude. She insists Alma's behavior stems from guilt and that he needs support. Aki believes Hikaru's help is crucial to bring Alma back. Realizing she's right, Hikaru agrees, but their conversation is cut short by a call from ARMS HQ. Alma has been captured by the Kagami group to unseal Ordella. Even when faced with a menacing figure like Taito Jun, Kagami stands firm, declaring he won't retreat. Determined to prove his resolve, the young Kagami attacks the White Crow member with his trigger arm, only to be effortlessly stopped. Tadao mocks the attempt, advising him to take better care of his toys. In retaliation, Taito tears off Alma from Jun, revealing he was merely following orders from Kagami's brother, claiming it's unfair to blame him. Kagami is quickly subdued, bound, and thrown into a vehicle, humiliated by his failed rebellion. Jun reflects on his brother Naohito's harsh words. The Kagami clan doesn't need failures, a phrase that has haunted him ever since. Meanwhile, Hikaru is awkwardly carried by Aki despite insisting he can walk, but she dismisses him, saying it would take too long. Using her mecha arms to speed up, she gets a call from Quinn, who mentions sending help to find a safe infiltration route. However, the help arrives with chaos. Warner and Keijimaru make a noisy entrance, causing a stir. Warner admits he felt like giving up, but the robot insists this is their best chance to infiltrate the enemy's castle. Keijimaru, as loud as ever, draws the attention of Kagami agents nearby. Frustrated, Warner yells even louder, leaving Hikaru convinced they're doing it on purpose. Annoyed, Aki calls Quinn again to ask when the rest of their team will arrive. The connection abruptly cuts off, disrupting the call. Kayano hurries to notify the scientists about widespread signal interference, urging them to handle the situation in person. She decides to lead the team herself, instructing Quinn to head to a different part of the base. Meanwhile, All just observes the connection alert of the blank expression before eventually taking action. Later, he casually arrives at Kagami base, carrying the coveted trigger arm and Jin Kagami as an unexpected addition. Sensing the boss's presence, a key representative of the organization showcases the Ordella Gate, a teleporter linked to the world of mecha youths, a revolutionary project aimed at surpassing Yakumo's legacy. With the trigger arm, the gate will open, granting access to mecha youths, enabling the Kagami group to dominate the robots there and amass even greater wealth and power. Jun frowns at this plan, prompting Todo to ask if he opposes it due to sentimentality. Jun denies this, but points out that his brother has been pursuing a reckless goal. Just then, Naohito arrives, commands the process to begin, and passes by Jun without acknowledgement. The elder expresses concern, momentarily moving his brother, who feels conflicted by the cold gesture. However, Naohito soon reveals his disdain, accusing Jun of being a disgrace to the family, reaffirming his usual aloof demeanor. At that moment, an employee announces that the trigger arm is prepared as the arbitrium fluctuation values are within acceptable limits. The final process begins. Trapped in a glass capsule, Alma struggles to escape being used as the key to open a portal leading the enemies straight to his homeland. He tries to warn them that Ordella's power must not be tampered with, but greed blinds the men who ignore his pleas. One of the project's directors, confident they can recreate the destroyed gate, claims Alma will soon join his mecha friends, though all will be shackled. Alma denies any knowledge of the gate and insists Ordella cannot be controlled, but the Kagami group proceeds with the sequence. Alma is hit by a powerful electric charge, generating the energy needed to activate the mechanism. This triggers Ordella's hand to emerge, shocking the observers with its strange and terrifying form. Panicked, an engineer warns there's no sign of dimensional change, even as arbitrium levels spike. Ordella then releases an energy beam that melts part of the structure. Despite the chaos, Naohito remains calm. When Jun questions him, insisting something is wrong and urging the process to stop, Naohito dismisses his concerns, claiming everything's on track. Suddenly, Ordella continues to grow, breaking through the building's boundaries as the experiment spirals out of control. Hikaru and Aki watched as a sinister monster emerged atop the building, unleashing increasingly powerful rays while drenched in sweat. A frantic director yelled about his ruined experiment, and engineers scrambled to evacuate. Amid the chaos, Naohito remained calm as Jun, recovering from a fainting spell, confronted Todo. Jun demanded to know what his brother thought would come of all this, but a White Crow member urged him to muster courage and face Naohito. Meanwhile, some attendees, including the director, rushed to escape via helicopter carrying the trigger arm. Hikaru intercepted them, demanding Alma's return, only to realize Aki wasn't by his side. As he hesitated to call his companion, Kagami members seized the opportunity to flee. Quen arrived to back up the arms team, offering logistical support but becoming a scapegoat when Hikaru used the chance to escape, leaving Quen in trouble. Ford attacked Quen, forcing him to flee. Unable to confront his opponents, the scientist stalled for time until Aki arrived. In desperation, he integrated with a Mecha Yude, mounting a defense against his foes and causing concern among Kagami's members. Quen's Mecha Yude detects the scientist's drive, causing Quen to lose control and launch an attack, nearly hitting his opponents. Tus arrives just in time, firing his precision rifle at the enemy robot. Seeing his Mecha Yude unharmed, Quen's arrogance grows as he focuses on stalling for Aki's arrival. Meanwhile, Naohito decides to recover the trigger arm alone, but exhaustion brings him crashing to the ground. Ford strikes the scientist again, but this distraction allows Aki to arrive, leaping into the fray with Hikaru and Wanner in her grasp. Ignoring orders, Kazuha attacks Aki, seeking revenge. Mocking her, he claims the Kagami group's elite could never lose to those who waste time befriending machines. Eager to dominate, he heightens his Mecha Yude's power, provoking a strong reaction. Despite the assault, Aki commands Sinus and Dex to stay back, grabbing Kazuha's Mecha Yude herself. Stunned, Kazuha dismisses her claim that blaming his tools and ignoring his own flaws makes his strength meaningless. Dismissing her words, he charges at her again. Aki commands Sinus and Dex to swiftly take down the Kagami member, and with a decisive strike, they defeat Kazuha, ending the fight. Following this, the man applauds their performance. Sinus asks his identity, and he introduces himself as Namba, the section chief of Department 3 Expansion. Uninterested in his antics, Aki charges at him with incredible speed, but despite his weary appearance, Namba dodges with remarkable reflexes. Getting straight to the point, Aki demands his intentions. He reveals that Department 3's budget is being cut due to her group and hopes she'll hear him out. Ignoring this, Aki attacks again, but Namba evades effortlessly. Frustrated, she demands he stop stalling questions if he wants to fight. Namba coolly replies that as the head of Department 3, fighting isn't his preference, especially against someone as impulsive as Aki. Losing her temper, she unleashes a full assault, prompting Namba to draw his katana to teach her a lesson. Despite his confidence, he fails to gain an upper hand, quickly exhausting himself. Meanwhile, Hikaru and Wanner are captured by other Kagami members. The protagonist helplessly watches as his friend is taken aboard a helicopter, but just as it lifts off, Threeg suddenly appears beside Kayano and stops the vehicle from departing. Hikaru questions Kayano about the man's presence, and she nervously admits that the big guy has taken an interest in her. Tus immediately fires at the arms member, but she blocks it with an energy shield. Fort joins the fight, unleashing shots that detonate barrels, flinging Kajimaru and Wanner toward Kayano and Kagami's director. Meanwhile, Namba checks his watch, realizes it's the end of his shift, and leaves his opponent mid-battle. During this chaos, the director seizes Fort's Mecha Yude and attacks Hikaru, warning him to stay out of his plans. Offended, Hikaru asserts his involvement since Alma is his trusted partner. Kajimaru intervenes, striking the director and giving Hikaru the chance to recover the trigger arm. Wasting no time, Hikaru lands a decisive blow, defeating the target. Later, Alma regains consciousness, furious at Hikaru for coming, claiming it's no longer his problem. Alma blames himself for reawakening Ordella, which caused Yukumo's death and still haunts him. Hikaru encourages him to face the pain and reminds him they must stop Ordella. Moved, Alma acknowledges Hikaru's kindness, and together they resolve to fight as a team. The team leaps from the helicopter and charges at Ordella, who retaliates by unleashing a barrage of laser blasts. They skillfully evade his attacks and close in on him, and he summons a wall of shimmering crystals to block their advance. Determined to break through, they strike at the barrier, only to find their efforts ineffective. Ordella continues his relentless assault, forcing them to scatter and take cover. As the group regroups, Kayano examines the crystals and identifies them as being composed of arbitrium, an indestructible material to both humans and Mecha Yude. She explains that their only hope lies in using Alma's unique abilities to target Ordella's rings, artifacts originally created by Alma that might allow them to seal him once more. Hikaru and Alma resolve to attempt this daring strategy and charge forward, dodging the deadly crystals Ordella hurls their way. However, as they draw closer, Ordella intensifies his attack with laser beams, leaving Hikaru struggling to evade. Realizing he's at a disadvantage, Hikaru calls out to Quen, asking if there's a way to connect his phone to Aki. Meanwhile, Tuz prepares her mecha Yude for action as Aki stands beside her, coordinating with Sinus and Dex to hold the line. With Aki's assistance to handle the massive recoil, Tuz fires a powerful shot from her mecha Yude, striking Ordella. In retaliation, he counters with a devastating laser that nearly incapacitates her, but Keijimaru and Kayano quickly shield her with their energy barriers. Taking advantage of the distraction, Hikaru and Alma launch a surprise attack from behind, successfully striking one of Ordella's rings. The hit causes Ordella to shrink momentarily, leading everyone to believe his power has been neutralized. However, he suddenly regains his original size and unleashes an even fiercer onslaught. Ordella locks his sights on Hikaru, bombarding him with laser fire and leaving him no escape. Tuz fires another well-aimed blast, hitting Ordella again, but he remains fixated on Hikaru, who realizes with dread that he may not survive. As Hikaru faces imminent danger, Jun arrives unexpectedly to rescue him just as everyone realizes the building is on the brink of collapse. The group makes the decision to evacuate. Hikaru grows concerned for Jun, suspecting he hasn't fully recovered from their intense battle with Amaryllis. However, Jun reassures him, insisting that he shouldn't be underestimated. With renewed determination, Jun charges forward as Ordella launches an assault using his crystalline weapons. Jun effortlessly destroys the crystals, but his progress falters as he struggles to evade Ordella's devastating laser beams, forcing him to retreat momentarily. Intrigued by how Jun managed to destroy the crystals so effectively, Hikaru inquires about his technique. Jun reveals that he is wielding the perfected form of Ouroboros known as Asclepius, which grants him the ability to manipulate the flow of Arbitrium. This unique power allows him to dismantle Ordella's crystal constructs. Hikaru is in awe of Jun's capabilities, but Jun admits that he's still vulnerable to Ordella's lasers. Determined to assist, Hikaru joins the fight. Kayano explains that Ordella has been weakened due to his exposure to Ouroboros, prompting Quinn to propose his strategy. They should use Ouroboros to immobilize Ordella, while Alma delivers the final blow. Agreeing with the plan, Hikaru and Jun spring into action. Jun uses Ouroboros to bind Ordella, but Ordella retaliates with a barrage of laser blasts. Struggling to maintain control, Jun urges Hikaru to act quickly. Responding decisively, Hikaru unleashes Alma's latent power, transforming it into an enormous mighty arm. With this immense strength, he lands a crushing blow on Ordella, shattering his crystals and completely destroying the building in the process. Despite the destruction, the group realizes they have successfully sealed Ordella's powers. As the dust settles, Jun abruptly starts to leave. Concerned, Hikaru questions his sudden departure, but Jun brushes him off, stating it's a personal matter and none of his concern. Jun then heads to a secluded alley, where he encounters his brother Naohito, who calmly asks what has brought him there. Jun commands his brother to stop messing around, fully aware that Amaryllis is manipulating him, something Tadao had already revealed. However, Amaryllis mockingly refers to Jun as a defective creation, convinced he poses no real threat to her. Jun, unfazed, vows to destroy her and launches an attack, but she effortlessly deflects his assault. She then begins to drain his Arbitrium, confident that his defeat is imminent. Yet, to her shock, her power starts to wane. Jun unveils a secret. He can replicate her ability, and with this newfound strength, he overwhelms her, slamming her to the ground. Despite her defeat, Amaryllis issues a chilling warning. Removing her will result in Naohito's death. Jun, however, reveals that his mecha Yude has evolved, enabling him to extract her without endangering his brother. Ignoring her threats, he pulls her out, leaving her completely powerless. In the aftermath, Jun reflects on a conversation with Tadao, who had assured him that everything was unfolding as Naohito had planned. Yet Todo hadn't anticipated Jun stealing the Ouroboros. Tadao demands its return after the battle, but Jun negotiates, securing permission to keep it until it cures his illness. Frustration brews within Jun as he accuses Tadao of being the one who originally pushed him to steal it, expressing his resentment toward his brother's meticulous planning. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to Hikaru, who receives Alma's gratitude for remaining steadfast. Alma pleads for Hikaru's continued support until he can return to his homeworld, and Hikaru solemnly promises to stand by him. Al eventually joins them, and Alma informs Fist that he has moved on from his painful past, urging him to unite with humanity to save their shared world. Elsewhere, Quinn spots Todo and hurriedly calls out to Aki. Todo suddenly collapses and urges the others to hurry, warning that Hikaru is in grave danger. Aki races to Hikaru's side as Todo reveals a shocking truth. Amaryllis has been controlling Naohito ever since he became president of the Kagami group. Furthermore, she had also manipulated previous leaders of the organization. However, Naohito devised a plan before she could fully possess him. In a flashback, Naohito witnesses his father being controlled by Amaryllis, which spurs him to investigate her origins. He discovers that Amaryllis has been preying on his ancestors to drain their life energy. Realizing that Jun might become her next target, Naohito resolves to protect his brother. To do so, he creates Ouroboros, intending to use it to destroy Amaryllis and cure Jun. He confides his plan to Todo, But Tadeu insists that Jun is stronger than Naohito gives him credit for and advises against keeping the plan a secret from him. Back in the present, Naohito regains consciousness and apologizes to Jun for the pain he caused, admitting his plan wasn't flawless. However, Jun is upset and tells Naohito to stop treating him like a child. He explains that he managed to defeat Amaryllis on his own and doesn't need to be coddled. Realizing Tagawa was right, Naohito apologizes for underestimating Jun in turn. Jun vows to surpass his brother and take over as president of the company. Despite this, Naohito insists they must still sell everything, hinting that the final confrontation is near. Meanwhile, Aki learns from Todao that Amaryllis wasn't the true mastermind. He reveals that the real enemy is Algis. Suddenly, Algis restrains Alma, prompting Hikaru to demand answers. Algis removes his mask, and Alma is horrified to recognize him as Yakumo. Hikaru is stunned to see Yakumo, believing him long dead. Fist confirms Yakumo's death, revealing he has been using his body as a puppet for his own goals. He explains that, like Alma and Amaryllis, he evolved after the accident and gained the ability to generate arbitrium. Fist reminds Alma that their purpose in this world is tied to Ordella. Alma agrees that Ordella might save their people but refuses to jeopardize the human world to awaken it. Fist clarifies he doesn't want to awaken Ordella but to unseal it and harness its power for himself. For a century, he has secretly studied Ordella, convinced it can evolve all mecha and let them generate their own arbitrium. While it sounds promising, Alma knows Ordella's power is far too dangerous and will harm humans. However, Fist dismisses humans as weak and illogical, caring only about making mecha independent to claim the world as their new home. Fist offers Alma a chance to join him, but Alma refuses to endanger humans. Disappointed by Alma's human weakness, Fist proceeds regardless. He binds Alma with shackles and merges with him to break the seal himself. As Fist leaves, Hikaru tries to intervene, but is too weak. Aki and Jun arrive to warn Hikaru, but it's already too late. Hikaru tells them Alma has been captured and wants to follow Fist. Aki and Jun argue over who should help Hikaru, with Aki entrusting Todao to Jun, as Todao is too injured after his failed attempt to stop Fist. Reassured, Jun joins Hikaru, and the group descends the massive spike toward the ground. They reach Ordella's crater just as Fist is about to unseal it and confront him in a dramatic clash. Aki accuses Fist of tricking them by pretending to be Ails. Fist claims he's been honest, saying ARM's mission has always been to protect Mecha Yud, no matter which ones. Jun doesn't care about Fist's intentions, his only goal is to get Alma back. When Fist dismisses Jun's efforts as pointless, his body malfunctions, giving Jun a chance to strike and recover Alma. Aki leaps from Jun's head, delivering a punch that sends Fist flying. However, when Aki attacks again, Fist counters, shackling Sinus and Dex while pinning Aki by her neck. Fist then pulls out a fragment of Amaryllis hidden in Jun's jacket. Amaryllis pleads for power, and Fist injects her with a substance that transforms her into a massive, powerful form. She quickly knocks Aki aside, and while Hikaru wants to help, Jun stops him, knowing his mecha is best suited to fight her. Jun slams Amaryllis down and tries to attack Fist, but Fist, familiar with Jun's mecha tech, steals it and forms another fist on his back. Jun, stunned, fails to notice Amaryllis sneaking up, and she pins him to the ground. Fist never planned to kill anyone, but with Jun constantly interfering, he feels forced to eliminate him. Just as Fist is about to strike, Hikaru attacks from behind. Although the attack fails, it distracts Fist enough to save Jun. Fist then shifts his focus, attempting to rip Alma away from Hikaru, warning him to surrender or lose an arm. Hikaru refuses, pouring all his energy into Alma in a desperate bid to escape. The sudden burst of power surprises Fist, causing his mechanical enhancements to malfunction. Despite controlling the Yakumo's body, its decayed state relies on machines to hold it together. Realizing the body won't last, Fist grabs Hikaru and drags him into the crater. He tears Alma from Hikaru once more and begins using him to break Ordella's seal. As Alma regains consciousness and begs Fist to stop, the process is already underway. An arbitrium shell forms around Fist, who orders Amaryllis to guard him during the power transfer. Feeling Ordella's immense energy surging through him, Fist offers Alma one last chance to share the power. Ignoring the plea, Alma calls out to Hikaru to rise again. Fist still struggles to understand why his brother refuses to join him. Though he hasn't fully harnessed Ordella's powers, he decides to give Alma a glimpse of what he's missing. Fist releases Ordella's energy, draining the arbitrium from every human in the city until they collapse. Amused by the chaos, he's interrupted by Hikaru, who refuses to give up. Fist wishes he'd stay down, but Hikaru keeps rising, reaching for Alma. Alma and Hikaru combine their efforts, forcing Fist to rip Alma off, along with his own arm, to stay in control. This halts his power, allowing the humans to recover. Despite Alma being his brother, Fist shows no hesitation, firing a lethal blast at him. Alma can't react, so Hikaru pushes him aside, sacrificing himself. Furious at wasting his shot, Fist prepares to fire again, but the arbitrium shell completes its formation, advancing his assimilation with Ordella. Meanwhile, Amaryllis absorbs Ordella's endless energy, growing stronger and craving even more. Fist orders her to protect him until the process is complete. When Jun and Aki arrive, Amaryllis immediately attacks. Jun blocks her, but Aki is frozen, horrified by Hikaru's lifeless body in a crater. Amaryllis drives the Arbitrium shell to a skyscraper. Back in the crater, Aki pulls Jun and Hikaru out of time, though both are unconscious and she's near collapse herself. At the arm's base, Kayano analyzes the energy from Fist's shell, discovering they have just 30 minutes before his assimilation allows him to drain Arbitrium from all humans. Suddenly, a stranger named Metora, Kegami Group's chief analyst, offers help, revealing that both Kegami and Arms are being manipulated by Fist and Amaryllis. Kayano, puzzled, agrees. Aki is found by Arms members just before collapsing, and they bring her, Hikaru, and Jun back for treatment. Hikaru's injuries are critical. When Aki regains consciousness, she learns he's alive but barely holding on, with little hope of saving him due to their limited resources. In the other bed, Jun remains unconscious as now Hito and Tadao watch over him, burdened with guilt for involving him in what should have been an adults-only issue. Since Jun can't stay here without his mecha, they call Kazuha and Tus to care for him. Meanwhile, a terrified Wanner, shaken by the giant Amaryllis and Arbitrium, refuses to be alone and joins Kazuha and Tus on their retreat to safety. Elsewhere, the team gathers in the analysis tent for a strategy meeting. The Asclepius mecha is the only weapon capable of breaking Arbitrium's shell, but with Jun incapacitated, Todo must pilot it. However, Amaryllis guards the shell, making it difficult to approach. Aki volunteers to distract Amaryllis, while an evacuation order is issued. Shirayama, ignoring the order, becomes fixated on uncovering drama. Spotting Kazuha and the others with Jun, she decides to wake him, convinced his reunion with Hikaru will create chaos. Meanwhile, Aki leads the White Ravens in an assault on Amaryllis. Amaryllis uses drones to stall them, but Hamada and others push through, allowing Aki to face her directly. Initially, Aki gains the upper hand, but Amaryllis taunts her about Hikaru's critical injury, causing Aki to falter. Amaryllis seizes the moment, knocks Aki down, and continues her mockery. Suddenly, a smoke bomb goes off, and Kayano signals Aki as help arrives. Fubuki appears alongside Sinus and Dex, and together, they overpower Amaryllis. With her defeated, Tabo prepares to breach the shell, but their worst fears materialize. Fist completes its fusion with Ordella, and Hikaru's heart flatlines. Meanwhile, Hikaru experiences a strange dream where he hears a distant voice calling out for help. However, he chooses to dismiss it, turning over and falling back to sleep. Unbeknownst to him, his heart has already stopped beating, and everyone around him believes he's dead. The scene then shifts back to Fist, who awakens from his destroyed cocoon, now imbued with the power of Ordella. Wanner, overcome with fear, panics at the thought of being trapped, while Kazuha suggests they simply blast through the rubble. However, a nearby student warns him that doing so recklessly might cause the entire cave to collapse. Shirayama, desperate for a solution, speaks to his mecha Yude, wondering if it can assist in any way. The mecha Yude, however, remains silent, and Shirayama explains that it's merely a tool with no will of its own. Meanwhile, Jun approaches Kajimaru, curious about the abilities of Tus and their respective mecha Yudes. In response, Kajimaru reveals that Tus's mecha Yude, called Scythe, has the unique ability to detect light, while Kazuha's mecha Yude, known as Adele, is renowned for its sharp intellect and analytical skills. Believing they could use these abilities to escape, Kajimaru suggests setting both mecha Yudes free. Jun immediately orders Tus and Kazuha to release their bindings. Tus complies first, freeing Scythe, who awakens with a jolt and begins screaming in disbelief as she realizes that, after 30 years, he can finally speak. She immediately recognizes Kajimaru and, with a mixture of relief and joy, expresses her gratitude that he's still alive. She then mentions a faint source of light coming from a specific direction. However, Kazuha hesitates to free Adele, fearing that his mecha Yude might seek revenge for past grievances. Jun, growing impatient, firmly tells Kazuha that escaping is impossible without Adele's help. Reluctantly, Kazuha agrees and removes the restraints. As soon as Adele is set free, Jun asks if he can identify a way out of their predicament. Adele quickly begins gathering information and grabs hold of Kajimaru, establishing a link to read through their memories. Almost instantly, Adele comprehends the entire situation and announces that he has formulated a strategy for their escape. Scythe explains that the only way to proceed is for her to unleash Arbitrium from her weapon, while Kazuha is restrained by the other students to keep him in position. Meanwhile, Kajimaru must shield the group to protect them from the weapon's full power. At the critical moment, the students will need to release Kazuha so he can channel the momentum gained from the impact to destroy the debris blocking their path. Adele warns Jun that the timing must be perfect for the plan to work, urging him to take charge of the group. Jun steps up, coordinating everyone's roles and positioning them before giving the order to execute the strategy. Saito fires her weapon, and the students struggle to hold Kazuha steady as the energy builds up. Adele transforms into a colossal fist, ready to deliver the final blow. Jun signals and the students release Kazuha, who propels himself forward with immense force, shattering the debris and clearing the way for everyone to escape. They celebrate briefly, relieved to be free, but their joy is short-lived when they realize the cocoon has been destroyed. Confused and concerned, they wonder what's going on. Jun quickly instructs Warner and his group to escort him to Hikaru. Upon arriving at the camp, Jun is horrified to find Hikaru in a dire state, barely clinging to life. Desperate to save his friend, he urgently calls for Eki's assistance. As Hikaru is stabilized, Jun approaches Naohito, who questions why he has returned. Jun reveals his intention to use the ancient device Asclepius to revive Hikaru. He explains that Asclepius can regulate the flow of arbitrium and has already helped alleviate his own condition. He believes that by channeling everyone's arbitrium into Hikaru's body, it can bring him back from the brink of death. However, Naohito opposes the idea, warning that Asclepius will be destroyed in the process and cannot be reconstructed. He insists that it was meant to treat Jun's illness, not to be sacrificed. But Jun is resolute, prioritizing Hikaru's life above all else. Seeing his determination, Naohito reluctantly agrees and allows Jun to proceed. With unwavering focus, Jun attaches Asclepius to Hikaru's body, hoping it will be enough to bring his friend back to life. He reveals his plan to everyone, but they initially seem opposed to it. Undeterred, he clarifies that his goal is to save Hikaru, who gave his life to protect them. Hearing this, they agree to help. They grab hold of Asclepius as Jun commands it to heal Hikaru. Meanwhile, in his dreamlike state, Hikaru appears lost and confused, unsure of where he is. Suddenly, Jun's hand reaches out to him, and he hears the voices of his friends calling his name. As Hikaru wonders what's happening, he begins to absorb everyone's arbitrium, slowly regaining his memories. Despite their efforts, his revival is incomplete, and nature remarks that Hikaru's arbitrium levels remain stagnant. Seeing the struggle, Adele proposes a solution. He urges everyone to remain united to strengthen the flow of arbitrium. Their combined effort seems to work, but from a distance, Fist watches them intently, aware that his body is deteriorating. In desperation, he soars toward them, determined to act. Hikaru, now remembering his companions and their shared bonds, hears Alma's voice telling him it's time to rise. Determined, Hikaru summons Alma's powers, realizing that moving forward is the only way. But before he can fully take action, a sudden explosion erupts. In the aftermath, everyone looks up in shock to see Fist clutching Jun. Fist declares that he has found the ideal host, seizing control of Jun's body and proclaiming his newfound power to dominate the world. Yet, in that critical moment, Hikaru stands once more, ready to face the threat ahead. In a flashback, Tsukito listens quietly as his relatives gossip about him, dismissing him as worthless because he can't even provide an heir to continue the family line. Fist, observing this memory, wonders why Tsukihito's family holds him in such low regard. Tsukihito then explains that as the eldest son, he was expected to take over the clan, but his frail health made him unsuitable for the role. Instead, his younger brother Yakumo, who successfully grew the family's business, became everyone's preferred choice to inherit leadership. Fist asks if Tsukihito resents Yakumo for taking his place, but Tsukihito calmly admits that he loves his brother deeply and feels thankful that Yakumo used his skills to improve the family's fortune and help develop the city. As the memory continues, Fist recalls a key moment before he left his home world, entrusting Alma with the leadership of the Mecha Youth. Though he believed it was the most rational decision at the time, he now realizes he still desires to reclaim that position himself. Tsukihito, sensing Fist's inner conflict, proposes that they make a solemn promise. No matter what happens, they must always protect and support their younger brothers. After the tragedy strikes, Tsukihito awakens to find Yakumo's body leaking arbitrium. Determined to save him, Tsukihito removes Fist from his own body and attaches him to Yakumo, reminding him of the promise they made. Back in the present, Hikaru tells Alma they must save Jun at all costs. The two charge forward with fierce determination, causing a massive explosion as they attack. However, Fist effortlessly blocks their strike and summons a colossal structure, introducing it as an arbitrium amplifier. He coldly declares that he will use its power to enslave humanity and dominate the world. Hikaru retaliates, attempting to stop him, but Fist easily deflects the assault with a devastating laser beam. Hikaru, resilient as ever, recovers quickly and launches a surprise counterattack, slamming Fist into the ocean floor. But Fist summons a towering crystal formation that hurls Hikaru back to the surface, and he realizes that his opponent is far tougher than he expected. Hikaru rushes forward again as Jun regains control of his body, and together they manage to land a solid strike on Fist. However, Fist quickly reasserts control, declaring that the body belongs to him. Hikaru, determined to reach Jun, tries to reason with Fist, but Fist cuts him off, forcefully knocking him aside. Alma, watching the exchange, questions why Fist is so intent on enslaving humanity. In response, Fist finally reveals the painful truth behind the tragedy, admitting that the catastrophic event wasn't an accident. He explains that after Tsukihito and Yakumo died, he overheard their families discussing Ordella, exposing that they had tampered with the experiment, intentionally causing a meltdown. Alma is stunned by this revelation, struggling to believe that humans would go so far. Fist, fueled by rage, insists that Alma should despise humanity for killing Tsukihito and Yakumo. Hikaru acknowledges that humans are deeply flawed, but he also emphasizes that they have the capacity to learn, grow, and push forward. He urges Fist to stop clinging to the past, but Fist refuses, growing more furious as he argues that humans will never change. They will continue to harm each other unless someone takes control. Fist claims that enslaving humanity is the only way to prevent further suffering, and he turns to Alma, demanding to know if he still intends to protect them. He unleashes a powerful energy blast at Alma, but it fails to take him down. Alma, standing firm, declares that Yakumo and Tsukihito would never have supported Fist's twisted crusade. Their powers collide as Hikaru and Alma unite against Fist. Hikaru senses that Fist is starting to falter, and Jun briefly regains his voice, urging Hikaru to give it everything he's got because he wants to see him win. Spurred on by Jun's words, Hikaru and Alma launch a relentless assault, overwhelming Fist. In desperation, Fist fires his beam cannon, but they press forward through it, countering with a devastating final strike that sends him crashing to the ground. As he lies defeated, Fist bitterly reflects on Tsukihito's goodness, lamenting that he didn't deserve to die. He blames humanity for the tragedy, asking Alma why he still fights to protect them. Hikaru, however, questions Fist's obsession with control, and Alma begins to realize that Fist's heart is torn. He loves Tsukihito deeply, but his hatred for humanity blinds him from finding peace. Hikaru declares his intent to save Fist, prompting both to unleash their full strength in a fierce clash. As their battle reaches its peak, Fist's body crumbles under the immense power, triggering a massive explosion. In the aftermath, Fist collapses into unconsciousness, haunted by the realization that Tsukihito would have condemned his reckless actions. Meanwhile, Warner and Kajimaru intercept a young boy who is revealed to be part of a notorious criminal syndicate. They uncover that he wields a modified shackle to manipulate the mecha Yude, justifying his deeds by claiming that only the strong deserve to survive. Unmoved by the boy's philosophy, Warner retaliates with brutal force, taking pleasure in tormenting weaker opponents, though Kajimaru steps in to stop his cruelty. As the boy attempts to flee, Toos fires a warning shot and scolds the pair for wasting time. With the situation under control, Saitha casually invites Toos to join her for a karaoke session after the mission. Elsewhere, Kazuha and Adele manage to apprehend more criminals, though Adele grumbles that the task would have been smoother if they'd adhered to his plan. Their conversation is cut short when Amada arrives out of nowhere, urging them to hop in and join him for a spontaneous ride. Quinn sits with the group, quietly reflecting on Eiki's wish to see her before he departs for the Mecha U world. Tani asks if it's possible to revive Carex, and Quinn confirms it is, explaining that he's now leading the Kagami Group's research division. He shares that Adele taught him how to restore Mecha U cores, which gave him hope. Meanwhile, Aki is interrogating a criminal, demanding to know if he's aware of Amaryllis, as the new shackles bear a striking resemblance to her design. Just then, Fubuki interrupts, reminding Aki that they're running out of time. Lost and unsure how to navigate back to the lab, Tabao steps in and tells them to follow him, revealing that he no longer serves as Naohito's bodyguard at the Kagami facility. The group discusses the growing threat of a new criminal organization. Jun insists that they must take action, pointing out that while Fist and Amaryllis had manipulated them, they had also allowed it to happen. He emphasizes that the company's new mission is to create harmony between Mecha Yude and humans, striving for coexistence. The scene shifts back to Quinn, standing at the edge of the portal to the Mecha Yude world. Just before he leaves, Aki and the others arrive, bringing him immense joy. Hikaru joins the reunion, and together they open the portal. As they watch Alma prepare to leave, a bittersweet realization dawns: it's time to say goodbye. Hikaru gives Alma Fist's cube as a farewell gift, urging him to take care of himself, and in return, Hikaru lets Alma keep his jacket as a token of their bond. This is the end of the series. If you like this video, please hit that like and subscribe button and turn on that notification bell so you don't miss any new videos. All of your support helps me to keep bringing more high-quality recaps. Check out this other video too if you haven't.